Alright, I was just inspired by a YouTube video I just watched. I actually just started watching some of the videos from this fella. The YouTube channel is Lion of Fire Raw Matt Mason. And his video was about producing fruit. And what I would like to do is illustrate it, because he understands it very well. And he puts it very well. He puts it into like I think it was just a 6-minute video, so everybody with short attention spans can check it out. But I would like to illustrate it. So to illustrate it, I would like to start off by first showing God's tree of life here. Right? And we'll have different branches and what have you growing off of this, and then there's branches that come off the branches, and so on and so forth. But what we're going to show here are two different trees. You are one of these trees over here, and I put black for it's a rotten tree, right? But there's another tree that you could be that is also rotten, but it's gray, so it doesn't look as bad. So it thinks that it has a good tree here. But you see, the trees are still bad. So what am I trying to illustrate here? What I'm trying to illustrate here is, let's say you need to produce some fruit, obviously, right? So you're supposed to produce, let's say, yellow and red fruit. This would represent good works of loving God and loving your fellow man. So first, of course, there would be leaves that come forth, right? Because the roots are getting deep in and they're getting the Spirit, and the Spirit is being spread throughout the tree, but then it needs the light, so it's growing leaves to suck up the light as it's growing up towards God, right? And I won't do the whole tree, but you see the black tree over here, it'll start to produce leaves too, right? But that doesn't mean anything, right? Because you don't judge the tree by the leaves. Because just because it has leaves doesn't mean it has fruit, right? And the same thing with the gray tree, where it doesn't seem as bad as the black tree, right? This is the group that's like, well, I'm not as bad as those people over there. Those guys are like blatant sinners. I'm not perfect, but I'm not like them. Well, it doesn't matter, right? So the thing is that these trees, the black and the gray here, their fruit both ends up being bad fruit. So we'll just draw some of this here. This is like a dark maroon here. Let's say this just represents not good fruit, right? And they know they got the bad fruit, so they're like, oh, we're not saved. So what we got to do is produce good fruit, and that shows that we're saved. So what they'll do, since they're supposed to produce yellow and red fruit, is what they'll do is they'll take yellow fruit. So let's say this is loving your fellow man. So let's say this is paying alms, going to a soup kitchen, giving to the poor and needy in some way, whether it's your time, energy, your money, or something along those lines. So they take that fruit, and it doesn't actually come from the tree, but they will stick it on there, right? They stick it on the tree, and they're like, look. And of course my mouse stuck. and they stick it on here, and they're like, look, I got good fruit, and here's the red fruit that you're supposed to have, a little brighter red. And let's say this is about loving God, doing the good things for God, preaching His word, prophesying in His name, casting out devils in His name, kind of thing, right? Let's try to get that yellow out of here, that yellow streak here. So they stick that fruit on, and they're like, look, I'm saved. I deserve to be saved. Or I will be saved because of my good fruit, right? But that is not how it works, right? Because just because you stick the fruit on the bad tree, even though the fruit is good, doesn't mean anything. As Jesus says in Matthew chapter 7, hey, yeah, you're prophesying in my name, you're casting out devils in my name, and you're doing many, 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 many wonderful works in my name, but I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. So you see, these trees are still bad trees. They're just sticking good fruit on it. You can call these Christmas trees, where the tree is dead. They cut it down, they put it up in the house, and then they decorate it. Right? We'll even try to put something like a little lighter gray here to make it look like silver. Right? We'll deck it with some silver on these trees here. But just because you're decking it with all these different things here, we'll put different colors representing the nice lights and everything. You're making the tree look nice by putting good works on it. It's still a bad tree. This is what I try talking to people who believe that we have to have good works to be saved. And I say, okay, so if Satan does good works, he'll be saved? And they're like, well, no. Or they'll try to say he won't do good works. And it's like, that's strange because he comes as an angel of light in his ministers as ministers of righteousness. So wouldn't that mean that he's coming and doing good things? I mean, like Matthew 7, what I just brought up, there's people prophesying in Jesus' name, casting out devils in his name, doing many wonderful works in his name, but they're not saved, right? So it shows that the works are not what saves you. They're doing these things, but they're just pasting the fruit onto their tree to try to make it look like their tree is some kind of fruitful tree. But they don't realize that they're just a dead Christmas tree, right? They're cut down and they're placed inside of the home, and then they're made to look like they're alive by putting all kinds of decorations on it, but it's dead, right? It has no root, nothing. It's not connected to Jesus. It needs to have that actual root here, and that's what the guy starts to illustrate, or starts to say in his video that I want to illustrate, is that you have to have the tree cut down. I'm not sure what color to use there. I guess we'll use orange. You have to be cut down because you're a bad tree. And then you have to be grafted into this tree. And after you're grafted into this tree, you do not focus on the fruit. Because even though you're part of this tree, you can still try to paste fruit on there. So let's just use purple to represent pasting fruit on the good tree here. So you can still try to paste fruits. Let's say this is your branch. This is you. And you're sticking this on, like you're taping this on, right? Because you're forcing the issue. Like, look, I have this good fruit. But it's not really coming from a real, true, pure love for God and love for your fellow man and pure intentions. You're going to the soup kitchen and doing these things to try to prove you're saved and to show God, look, I'm producing fruit. This is the fake fruit, right? You can still paste it on when you're part of this tree. So what you got to do is you got to focus on actually tree. So you focus down on the roots, as Jesus says, He's the roots and He bears you up. So you focus on God through prayer, right? And through reading His Word, believing His Word, trusting in His Word, feeding on it. So when you're doing these two things, what you're doing is when you're reading the Word, what can I do here? I don't want to use all the same colors, so this one looks a little different. Looks more like water. when you're reading the Word, Jesus says, my words are spirit and are life. So it's like the raindrops coming down here. Right? This is you reading. When you're reading, you're getting it to rain. Right? And then the Word of God comes through the roots, so Jesus takes it, and he's your teacher, as 1 John chapter 2, verse 27 says, we don't need a man to teach us, right? The Spirit will guide us in all truth. So Jesus is interpreting the Word for us, comparing the Word to the Word, line upon line, precept upon precept. So then the water is brought up through the tree, and then the water is dispersed to the branches. But then you see when you have the leaves, you can say that's your prayer. You're praying, so you're growing leaves. And when you pray, what are you doing? You're trying to reach the light. And you're taking in the light to better help you understand, again, the Word. So the light, you're reaching out to God. So you see, these are the two things you got to be doing as a plant. You're not focusing on producing fruit. You're focusing on the water and the light. And then, when you're doing that, all of a sudden you don't have to have this fake fruit. You actually start producing the fruit naturally. You don't even realize it, but the fruit just starts growing. Right? You're reading, you're praying, and all of a sudden you're changing. The same things you used to enjoy and desire, you don't. And then you enjoy getting into the Word of God. You enjoy praying more. You're starting to see results for the people you pray for. And you see God moving in everything. And all of a sudden you're preaching with your life. Whether you're preaching with your words or not, all of a sudden your influence is preaching. And you're producing fruit. And you don't even realize it. Well, you may realize it, but you may not, right? Because this is just something that naturally happens. So then you can just get rid of the fake fruit, because now you truly are doing things out of a love for God, love for your fellow man, and not to try to prove to yourself or to God or to others that you believe, or that you're saved, or that you're a good Christian or a good man, good woman, or whatever. You're not trying to prove any of that. It just naturally, these things just happen. Just like when you're little, you don't focus on learning to walk and to talk or those kind of things. You just naturally start crawling and then start wobbling around and start walking, and next thing you know, you're running around, and you didn't focus on trying to learn whatever languages you know. They just kind of, well, sometimes, we go learn a language, but when we're growing, if you have a language in your household or multiple languages in your household, you just pick them up, and all of a sudden now you know the language just by hearing it, right? You didn't focus on these kind of things, and that's how our fruit ends up being. It just kind of happens. So if you're trying to force it, it's basically what we're told in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 10 through 15 about building upon Jesus wood, hay, and stubble. If you're forcing it, you're just pasting on fake fruit, because the fruit has to actually be genuine, coming from the tree, not from somewhere else pasted onto the tree, right? Just like these people on these other trees, they paste the fruit on there, but doesn't change the fact that they're a rotten, dead tree. So I just wanted to illustrate what that fellow was saying, because he said it very well. He understands exactly how it works, and it's good to see that. So with all that being said, thanks for watching, and take care.